I still remember the sound of that train whistle cutting through the rain. A young woman in a maid's uniform stumbled toward the tracks, her hands out, her mouth open in a silent scream. Behind her stood a woman in a red dress, smiling like nothing was wrong. Nobody on that platform moved. Nobody except one man in a pink suit, standing frozen, watching everything unfold in the rain. What he did next would destroy one family and save another. But nobody was ready for what happened next. Her name was Dolores Reyes. She was 26 years old, and for 3 years she had worked as a housemaid for the Whitfield family in Charleston, South Carolina. Every morning she pressed Mrs. Whitfield's dresses, folded Mr. Whitfield's shirts, and never once complained, even when the work started before sunrise and ended long after dark. Dolores had a daughter back home, a 6-year-old girl named Marisol, who stayed with her grandmother in a small apartment across town while Dolores sent every spare dollar she earned. She missed birthdays. She missed bedtime stories. But she told herself it was temporary, that one day she would save enough to open her own little sewing shop, and Marisol would never have to worry about anything again. That night, the Whitfields were traveling by train to Savannah for an important business dinner. Dolores came along to carry the luggage and press Mrs. Whitfield's gown before the event. The station was old and beautiful, with tall iron lamps and wet cobblestones shining under the lights, the kind of place that looked like it belonged in an old photograph. Mrs. Whitfield, Vivian, walked ahead of everyone in a deep red dress, smiling at strangers who turned to look at her. She always smiled like that, like she was being watched. But Dolores noticed something strange that night. Vivian kept checking her watch over and over, and every few minutes her eyes would flick toward Dolores, quick and cold, like she was waiting for something to happen. "Dolores, come here," Vivian said sweetly, waving her closer to the edge of the platform. "I need you to check something on the tracks." Dolores hesitated. Didn't make any sense. Why would luggage be near the tracks at all? But she had learned a long time ago never to question Mrs. Whitfield, not if she wanted to keep her job. She stepped closer to the edge, the rain soaking through her uniform, the train's headlight already visible far down the line. That's when she felt hands on her back. Not gentle, not accidental, hard, deliberate shove. Dolores stumbled forward, her arms flailing wildly, her heart slamming against her chest as the platform's edge rushed toward her. The train's light grew brighter and brighter in the darkness. She heard Vivian's voice behind her, calm and cold, almost bored. "Careful now." Nobody screamed. Nobody rushed to help. And in that terrifying instant, Dolores understood something she never wanted to believe. This wasn't an accident. This was planned. Somebody wanted her gone, and they wanted it to look like a tragedy. But why? What had a quiet housemaid ever done to make someone hate her enough to want her dead? And more than that, why did Vivian's hands feel so practiced, like this wasn't the first time she had thought about this moment? 3 feet from the tracks, Dolores caught the edge of a metal bench and steadied herself, gasping for air, her whole body shaking. Her uniform was soaked through with rain and cold sweat. She turned around slowly, expecting to see horror on Vivian's face, expecting an apology, expecting anything human. Instead, Vivian's smile hadn't moved an inch. "You should really be more careful," she said, straightening her gloves like nothing at all had happened. A small crowd had begun to gather on the platform, murmuring, unsure of what they had just seen through the rain and the dim lamplight. Some believed it was a simple accident, a slippery platform, bad luck. Others weren't so sure, and they kept glancing between the two women with growing unease. Then, from across the platform, a man in a pink suit stepped forward, moving slowly through the crowd. His name was Charles Whitfield, Vivian's husband, and one of the wealthiest men in Charleston. Everyone assumed Charles hadn't seen anything at all, that he had been too far away, too distracted by the phone call he'd been on just moments earlier. But his face told a very different story. His jaw was tight. His knuckles were white around the phone still in his hand. And his eyes were locked on his wife with an expression none of the staff had ever seen on him before. Quietly, without a word, he turned his phone slightly, just enough that the small red light near the camera lens was visible. It was still recording. Nobody noticed it yet. Not even Vivian. Charles walked toward them slowly, rain dripping steadily from the brim of his jacket. "Vivian," he said, his voice low and shaking, "I saw what you did." Vivian's smile finally cracked, just slightly, like a mask starting to slip. "Charles, sweetheart," she slipped. "You know how clumsy these girls can be." But Charles turned his phone around so the whole platform could see the screen. The video played clearly, undeniably. Vivian's hands pressed against Dolores's back. A shove. The cold, satisfied smile that followed it. Gasps rippled through the gathered crowd. Vivian's face went pale beneath the station lights. "I can explain," she stammered, her voice suddenly small. "You always said she flirted with you at dinner parties," Charles said quietly, each word landing like a stone. "You've been planning to get rid of her for weeks, haven't you? I found the notes in your desk. I just didn't want to believe it." Vivian said nothing. She simply stood there, rain running down her painted face. Dolores stood frozen, unable to believe what she was hearing. She had done nothing wrong. She had simply existed, worked hard, and stayed quiet, and somehow that had been enough to make Vivian jealous enough to try to kill her. Charles knelt beside Dolores in the rain. His voice gentle now, almost breaking. "Are you hurt? Please tell me you're not hurt." Dolores shook her head, tears mixing freely with the rain on her face. But something in Charles's eyes told everyone watching that this story was far from over. The police arrived 20 minutes later, their lights washing red and blue across the wet platform. Vivian was placed gently but firmly into the back of a patrol car, her red dress soaked through, her head down for the first time anyone could remember. As officers took statements, one detective pulled Charles aside quietly. "Sir, there's something you should know," the detective said, glancing down at a small notebook. "This isn't the first complaint against your wife. 2 years ago, a nanny from your household filed a report claiming Mrs. Whitfield had threatened her. The case was dropped." Charles felt the ground shift beneath him. He had never known. Or maybe, somewhere deep down, he had chosen not to know. He turned back to Dolores, who was sitting wrapped in a blanket an officer had given her, still trembling. "There was someone before you," he said quietly, kneeling in front of her. "I didn't want to believe it then either. I'm so sorry it took almost losing you for me to finally see the truth." Dolores looked up at him, her eyes red from crying but steady. "You saw it in time tonight," she said softly. "That's what matters now." Around them, the crowd slowly began to disperse, whispering the story to one another, a story that would be all over Charleston by morning. But for Dolores, sitting on that cold, wet platform, none of that mattered yet. All she could think about was Marisol, waiting for her at home, and how close she had come to never seeing her daughter's face again. In the weeks that followed, Charles made sure Dolores never had to worry about money again. He paid for Marisol to attend a wonderful school in Charleston, one with a garden and a music room, the kind of place Dolores had only ever dreamed about for her daughter. He helped Dolores find a small house near the water, close enough that she could see Marisol running along the beach every single evening after school. Vivian faced serious charges for what she had done, and the community that once admired her, once envied her red dresses and her perfect smile, turned away from her completely. Her name became a warning, not an example. But Dolores didn't spend her days angry. She spent them watching her daughter laugh in the sand, safe, warm, and free, in a way neither of them had ever truly been before. Sometimes Charles would visit just to check on them, just to make sure they were doing all right. He never once asked for anything in return. He simply wanted to know that kindness, in the end, had won. On the 1-year anniversary of that terrible night at the train station, Dolores opened the doors to a small sewing shop downtown, the same dream she had carried with her for years, now finally real. Above the door, she hung a small handwritten sign that read simply, "Second Chances." Marisol helped her hang it, standing on a wooden stool, laughing as the wind tried to steal it from her small hands. Charles came by that morning with flowers and stood outside the window for a moment, just watching mother and daughter together, safe and whole. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Some moments speak louder than words ever could. And sometimes, the smallest act of courage, caught in a single second on a rainy platform, changes every single life it touches. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who still believes kindness can change the world. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below.